Aji is a worthless, lonely orphan whose only talent was flipping burgers in his kitchen. However, everything changes when his cooking summons an incredibly beautiful goddess who then grants him unlimited power to save the world. This story starts with Aji whipping up some food in his kitchen like Gordon Ramsay. After preparing the best ramen bowl in existence, he tries to take in the beauty of his creation, but a portal suddenly appears, which terrifies him. Just then, a thick and gorgeous spirit named Dora flies out, but before he can process this, Dora transforms into a literal doll and gobbles the entire bowl in seconds. Despite the shock, Aji asks who on earth she is, and after Dora introduces herself, he throws her out like a broke tenant. Aji then tries to convince himself that he didn't get enough sleep, but Dora is already back in the kitchen, consuming his entire pot of food. After yeeting her out the window, he wonders if he is experiencing psychosis, but this chick casually phases through the shelves and says she is a summoned spirit. She then complains about still being hungry and inhales everything in his fridge, so he flushes her down the toilet and prays this keeps her away. However, she returns again, so Aji makes her a cup of tea before asking for a better explanation. After saying that she is an ancient goddess, Dora explains how her full form uses way too much spirit energy, which is why she prefers this Powerpuff body. She further tells him that spirits can be summoned through food offerings, and she came to him because he made that heavenly delicacy. Not wanting any piece of her, he takes off for school, but Dora follows him and offers to grant any wish he desires if he accepts a partnership. Aji rejects the offer, but she continues bothering him even in class, so he waits for her to fall asleep before sneaking out. Outside, a junior stops Aji to give him a love letter, but Dora suddenly crawls out of his bag to annoy him again. Frustrated, Aji slams his bag and tells Dora to get away from him, but the girl thinks he is talking to her, so she runs away crying. Much later, Aji finds Dora sleeping under a tree and dumps a bag of treats on her before begging her to go back to wherever she came from. Hearing this, Dora starts crying and turns into her plotful form before telling him that spirits who get rejected by their summoners eventually fade away. Despite this, Dora decides to accept his decision, but she asks to walk with him first so she can have some good last memories. Aji agrees, and as they start walking, Dora decides to show him what the world looks like through her eyes. She then explains how only a handful of enlightened humans called summoners know enough about the spirit realm to summon spirits. She also demonstrates the power of a summoner by channeling her power through him to uproot a massive tree. Seeing this, Aji gets mesmerized and allows Dora to form the contract with him. As she starts celebrating, Aji shrugs it off, accepting that this is his life now. Dora then hops on his back and channels her powers again to create wings and make him fly. As they soar through the skies, Aji tries to enjoy the experience, but then Dora's energy depletes, causing them to crash. Much later, they are both in his bed, patching up their wounds and wondering how they both survived. When the power suddenly goes off, Aji recalls that he hasn't paid the light bill. Dora then reminds him of his new powers and helps him create a firefly spell that lights up the room and slowly heals all their wounds. This blows Aji's mind, so he asks how all this summoning stuff came about. Dora flashes back to a brutal war between summoners, and recalling how she got chained in limbo, her brain short-circuits, and she passes out. Aji also decides to turn in for the night, unaware that a mysterious girl is watching with her familiar. The following afternoon, Aji tries to enjoy a local basketball game, but Dora's glistening drumsticks keep distracting him, so he tells her to get some clothes. She tells him not to worry since no one else can see her, but as he tries to focus on the game, a news broadcast comes on, showing pics of him flying and the tree Dora pulled out of the ground. Aji panics and says they need to keep a low profile, but Dora ignores this and tells him to put sunscreen on her plots. As Aji puts on his headphones to also ignore her, a plant spirit named Greenball suddenly attacks Dora. While struggling, she throws the sunscreen at Aji to get his attention, but Greenball swallows her before he can do anything. After spitting out her plot covers, it takes off, and Aji immediately chases after it while asking Dora why she can't just use her powers to break free. Dora then explains that she has to be near him to use them, and the farther apart they are, the weaker she gets. After a failed attempt to catch Greenball, Aji ends up in school and gets surprised to see so many clubs outside. But as he tries to resume his search, some juiced-up bozo stops him. Apparently, his younger sister is the chick who gave him a love letter, so Aji watches in fear as the weak-looking girl shatters several concrete sheets with her hand. However, when Dora telepathically calls out to him, he runs off again, leaving the steroid ambassador and his sister in shock. As Greenball gets further away, she tells Aji to come quickly, or the telepathic link between them will get severed. Just then, a four-eyed dweeb tells Aji to come join his supernatural research club so they can become the new guardians of the galaxy. However, after spotting a moving plant, Aji uses the midget's face as a jump boost and lands on the plant, only to realize that he just traumatized an innocent civilian. As her friends tell him to get off, he recognizes the music playing around Dora and tells everyone to zip it so he can focus. Minutes later, he finds the concert venue and senses someone in the trees, but when he turns, she seemingly disappears. Dora then tells Aji that she is about to pass out, and after thinking of how to keep her awake, he suddenly stops and says this is finally his chance to get rid of her. Upon hearing this, Dora loses it and starts crushing the green ball's guts until Aji finds it. She then rips her way out and continues fighting while Aji protects what's left of his brain by looking away from her kitty. After tossing his coat to cover her, Aji says he already found the summoner. Dora then sees Green Ball climbing onto Hana, the chick from last night, who then turns to leave. Dora immediately tries to attack again, but they both vanish into thin air. As she starts crashing out, Aji tells her to relax so they don't make a scene. She then asks how he even knew that Hana was the summoner, so Aji reminds Dora that only summoners can see spirits. Since no one else saw the plant, it was obvious that another summoner sent it to attack Dora. He also noticed that Green Ball kept running in a circle, which meant the summoner was close by to maintain its power level. Dora commends him for being so smart, but Aji is more concerned about the fact that Green Ball had so much power despite being quite a distance away from Hana. He figures that she must be extremely dangerous at full power. Like that isn't enough, he noticed that she wears high-end clothes and her earring has the same emblem as his school. The emblem actually belongs to a powerful family that runs the school, and Aji is now convinced that Hana is from that family, which makes her even more dangerous than they can imagine. While Dora continues glazing him, Hana meets with Principal Harlan and says she didn't go all out because there were a lot of people around. Harlan then tells her not to hold back next time because he can easily take care of any fallout. As she heads out with the plant spirit, Harlan gets excited to see Aji's full potential. The next day, in school, worthless side characters flood the hallways to watch as Hana struts towards Aji's class. He barely notices all the noise until Hana walks up to his table and drops a letter before leaving. His classmates immediately grab it, and while they read Hana's invitation to the woods, Aji pays more attention to the dark rose she left behind. After school, the Nerd Squad tells Aji to watch his date with Hana. The steroid ambassador also pulls up to curse him for getting lucky with Hana, but Aji ignores this. Moments later, they get to the woods, and Aji notices that his favorite stray cat, Miou, has been following him around. After she runs off, the Nerd Squad suddenly gets captured by vines, giving Aji enough time to finally lose them. Just as he reaches a dead end, the trees magically clear a path, which he then follows until he sees Hana's aura farming in a bed of dark roses. After she sees them, Green Ball orders Aji to hand Dora over to them and leave if he likes staying alive. Aji refuses and says he has gotten attached to Dora, so Hana attacks with a deadly rose that cuts Aji across the face. Before they can react, the spirit turns into a vine, and Hana uses it to smack Dora into a boulder. Pissed off, she immediately starts looking for her own weapons while Aji tries his best to stay alive. Eventually, Hana gets tired of chasing him, so she unleashes a barrage of leaf blades before summoning Groot's psychotic uncle to finish them off. The monster immediately attacks Dora, but she evades and continues running until Hana wraps her up with vines. The monster then tries to end her, but Aji jumps in at the last second. Just as Hana and her spirit think he got squashed, they both cut through the monster's palm with Dora's crystal cleavers. This makes Hana decide to finally go all out. Sensing the danger, Dora channels her power through Aji to create a crystal fist, which he then uses to counter the monster's punch. With its arm obliterated, Dora summons her wings again and enhances Aji's speed so he can get close enough for the final blow. After several successful hits, Aji finally takes the monster down, and Dora excitedly hugs him, as she never expected him to be that skilled in martial arts. After Aji claims he only used the skills he uses in the kitchen, Hana releases the tree monster back into the spirit world, but then Dora tries to take her down with a sneak attack. Before she can chop Hana's head off, Aji stops her and says he doesn't want any senseless bloodshed before telling Dora that Hana has actually been holding back this entire time. When Dora asks how he knows, he points to the 4 massive tree monsters eagerly waiting for Hana's command. Green Ball then tells Aji that he passed their test, but Dora failed, so she starts glazing them to ease the tension. She even offers to take them back home for dinner, but Green Ball refuses to hear another word and says Hana can't be swayed by food. However, after they all hear Hana's belly begging for food, Aji takes them home, where he prepares an entire buffet for dinner. While he tells Hana to have as much as she wants, Green Ball and Dora totally hit it off, and Green Ball notes that a good fight is the best way to start a friendship. When Aji asks why it has to be that way, Green Ball explains how there are good and bad summoners, which means some spirits are evil. As a result, he and Hana became the city's guardians and protected it by testing any new spirit and the master that summoned it. He goes on to say that since Aji passed, he can join them, but then Hana shoves a drumstick in his mouth and leaves. Green Ball immediately starts begging her to stay longer for dessert while Aji follows her outside to stare at the night sky. Hana then admits that she already knows what kind of person he is, but since she barely knows anything about Dora, she promises to keep watching them and gives him another black rose before leaving. leaving. The next day, in a dream, a spirit girl recalls the day her brother was consumed by darkness before waking up on a roof surrounded by Meow Wu and a bunch of other animals. After she casually jumps off the roof to start her plan, Aji's class gets invaded by a giraffe. He immediately tries to see what's going on, but raccoons climb in and start thrashing the class, so everyone runs out. Moments later, the entire school gets overwhelmed by wild animals, so the authorities broadcast an eviction notice. Aji eventually manages to get outside with Dora, but as he tries to head home, she drags him towards the commotion and says he has to step up in these situations since he is now a summoner. Just then, a new broadcast comes on explaining that the animals escaped from a local zoo. The spirit girl sees this and gets excited to take over the city with her animals. However, Aji suddenly pushes her out of the way, thinking she is in danger. After she gets back up, Meow shows up, so Aji grabs her, thinking she is also in danger. However, she rips him a fresh-faced hat before the spirit girl tells him to stop butting in. Aji gets shocked and asks how she knows him, but Dora tells him to keep his distance because she is not a normal girl. Just then, Hana pulls up to the scene with Greenball and tells him to keep a low profile before jumping down for a surprise attack. After Hana easily captures the animals, the spirit girl tells her not to hurt them, but Greenball tells her to can it and explain why she released them in the first place. She then explains how selfish humans are for taking all the land and keeping animals in cages. She wants every human to feel the same pain, but Greenball is already tired of the pathetic backstory, so he orders her to hand over the spirit she summoned. She refuses and tries to land a surprise attack instead, but Hana easily blocks it and activates her powers to fight. She gets surprised by the spirit girl's speed, but still manages to keep up while Dora gets excited to join the fight. Aji tells her to hold on for a bit so they can watch Hana, and as expected, Hana finally starts overpowering the spirit girl. However, after unleashing multiple animal-related spells, the spirit girl transforms into a giant spirit bear, forcing Hana to pull up a shield for protection. Greenball then tells her to get serious, so she summons Groot's uncle, who then attacks the spirit bear. It initially manages to hold the bear back, but Dora and Aji quickly realize that their fight won't end anytime soon because they are evenly matched. Hana also notices this, so she makes Greenball possess the tree monster so its attack can generate more power. This works as they finally destroy the bear, but its spirit energy gets converted into several demon wolves who then latch onto the tree monster and start ripping it apart. Hana gets wounded by this since her life essence is powering the tree monster, so she adds yet another piercing skill to its artillery before obliterating the wolves. As Dora starts getting worried, Aji notices that Meow Wu suddenly has a bunch of injuries and seems to be very committed to the fight. After the wolves turn into a giant serpent to crush the monster, Aji suddenly throws Dora in between them and summons soul-binding chains to keep them apart, while Greenball gets pissed at him for stopping them. He explains that the spirit girl was actually summoned by Meow Wu. After Meow Wu absorbs her, Greenball and Hana are surprised, while Aji says she probably had her reasons for starting an animal rampage. Meow Wu tries to apologize, but he stops her from talking and tends to her wounds. This makes her recall the day he first found her wounded in some bushes. When he tried to help, she attacked, but he still cleaned her wounds and built some trust before naming her. With the threat taken care of, Dora suggests calling it a day, but Greenball says it won't be over until they hand the cat over. Aji refuses and says they have to wait until Meow Wu is done recovering. Greenball immediately tries to attack, but Dora stops him with her full form and tells him to go get some rest because they obviously need it. After telling Greenball to leave them, Hana tells Aji that he is picking the wrong side. As they turn to leave, she trips, which makes Greenball worried, but Hana shrugs it off. Hours later, Aji is back home with the girls, stroking Meow Wu and wondering how animals can also be summoners. Meow Wu's familiar then tells him all about the animal summoners she has met in her time. She then remembers her brother and suddenly gets upset, so Aji asks if she is searching for him. She then explains the night her brother joined the dark side and says she followed his tracks to this city. However, Meow Wu got injured and couldn't use her powers for a while until Aji showed up and patched her up. At that point, Meow Wu's powers returned, but then she realized that her brother was intentionally avoiding her, so the zoo break was her attempt to draw his attention. After Aji says she succeeded with the attention part, she gets upset again, so she promises to help her find her brother after she takes some time to recover. While they continue talking, Meow Wu's brother secretly spies on them. The following evening, the girls continue a gaming marathon until someone rings the doorbell. Aji answers and almost pisses himself when he sees an army of mutants inviting him to a private dinner. He humbly declines, but then they yeet him into a Rolls-Royce chopper while the girls follow behind. Several minutes later, they land on a luxurious manor where Hana and Greenball are waiting to flex the fact that they have enough money to solve world hunger forever. Greenball and Meow Wu immediately try to fight, but Hana tells everyone to relax so they can have dinner. As they head inside, Aji gets curious about the floating eyeballs, so they explain how their family uses spirits as a surveillance system. They'd also use spirit eels for electricity and an entire army of blade-wielding demons as gardeners. There's also some creepy angel dude pissing water on the plants while a flaming chef grills meat for dinner. When Aji asks how many summoners live here, Greenball tells him that it's just one guy summoning all the spirits. He is also the one who invited them for dinner. Moments later, they enter the mansion and notice a massive statue, which Greenball says was built in honor of the first leader of the Watchers. As he and Dora start another argument, Aji hears a voice calling out to him, so he asks if anyone else heard it. After they all say no, a voice calls out to him from the statue again. The next moment, Aji finds himself in the spirit realm staring at what looks like his mum, but when he tries to get closer, Dora wakes him up. She asks if he's okay, and after saying it's nothing, he continues heading inside. Moments later, they finally meet Harlan, but before the man can welcome them, Greenball starts yapping about all the things he has accomplished. Harlan causally brushes it off to glaze Hana instead, so Dora tells Aji that he seems like a harmless old man. Aji agrees, but after Harlan flicks his wrist and forces them all into the chairs, Aji realizes just how powerful the old man is. Harlan then welcomes them and immediately starts talking about the blue crystal, a godlike entity that serves as the source of all magic. While they talk, Miaowu's brother shows up again to spy on them. Harlan then explains how summoners have been waging wars for centuries for control and eventually split into two factions. The Watchers are committed to allowing the natural order and preserving peace, while the Destroyers are obsessed with taking all the power for themselves so they can take over the world. With that out of the way, he asks Aji which side he is going to pick. Dora then decides to join the Marvel Universe, while Miaowu wants to replace Batman. Aji immediately shuts them up, so they think he is about to say something meaningful, but he basically refuses to pick either side and says violence is stupid. After he also claims that his man told him to avoid mafia-related organizations, Harlan tells him to stop the cap because both his parents vanished without a trace when he was little. He also knows that Aji has been in and out of foster homes since then, and he now works 2 jobs to live on his own. What's more is that he changed the original color of his hair to act like he doesn't care about anything, but he does because he still has an old picture of his parents in his wallet. Harlan further notes that everything that has happened to him is not a coincidence, like he keeps trying to convince himself. Dora refuses to believe that Harlan knows all these things, so she grabs Aji's wallet and gets shocked to see the picture of his parents. Harlan then tells Miaowu that the brother she keeps searching for is the Destroyer's greatest assassin and a wanted criminal. After he tells them to accept fate, Hana and Greenball tell him to chill because Aji's brain is already fried. Harlan immediately apologizes for dropping all that information and offers to let them stay for a couple of days so he can go into more detail about their history. Dora says it won't be possible since Aji still has school, but Harlan reminds them that he is the principal. Just then, the servants bring in dinner, so they all start munching, while Harlan asks Dora to show him her full plotful form later. After she agrees, a powerful spirit suddenly appears in the sky and charges towards the mansion. Harlan notices and powers up his fist to deflect the blast, but this barely affects Ruthless. Harlan then says he already knew they were watching him and immediately attacks, but the energy created by their punches destroys the entire room, so he tells Hana to leave with everyone else. Aji tries to help, but Hana says they will just be in the way. After another attack sends them flying, she saves everyone with vines, but then they see that the entire manor has been destroyed. Just as some of the servants tell her to run away, an assassin named Flame turns him into Swiss cheese and almost blows Hana's head clean off. After she uses grenades to knock them down, Hana starts fighting her while Miaowu spots her brother. She sees him casually unaliving Harlan's servants and still decides to approach him with her spirit form, thinking this will soften his heart. However, he blasts her right through the head, which knocks her out. Aji immediately charges in to fight Miaowo's brother, but another destroyer named Dream sneaks up on him and sends him into a dream state where Aji sees his mum again. He initially enjoys this until it turns into a nightmare that traps him. While Dora desperately tries to wake him up, Harlan turns low-budget Bane into his personal heavy bag. Hana sees this and decides to stop pulling her punches, but after she summons Groot's uncle, Flame tells her to watch her back next time. Before Hana can react, a destroyer named Shadow destroys her tree monster, which pops several blood vessels all over Hana's body. The next moment, Shadow slits her throat, but Harlan immediately blasts her body with healing magic. He manages to stop the bleeding, but then Ruthless attacks again and finally manages to draw blood. Harlan then uses an ice skill to hold him back, but Miaowa's brother joins the fight and cuts right through Harlan's heart. Flame also jumps onto his chest and shoots him right in the eyes. However, after thinking of Hana, Harlan unleashes his true powers, which terrifies everyone. Miaowa's brother tries to restrain him, but Harlan nearly reduces him to fairy dust with a powerful blast that stretches into the forest. As they all stand back and watch him go berserk, the gang leader, Hart, finally shows up and summons the Grim Reaper to extract Harlan's powers. Despite Harlan's immense power, Hart succeeds, and when they tell him about Aji and the others, he decides to leave them for later. They then portal away along with half of the mansion while Dora and Greenball struggle to believe what just happened. The following day, Miao was back up, thinking about everything, while Aji stares at the picture of his parents. On the other hand, Greenball is still healing Hana and fighting back tears. Just then, a broadcast comes on about the mansion's sudden destruction, and Dora gets pissed because they all got manhandled like pathetic rookies. She wants to get revenge on Heart and the Destroyers, but then Meowwu comes back inside and asks if it's even possible, considering that her brother is one of them. Aji then says there is no point in getting pissed because they know nothing about their enemies, and the guy who wanted to teach them just got smoked. Dora notices that he is on the phone, so she flips out and tries to attack him for being so nonchalant. However, Aji shows her a lead he just found from what happened last night. Someone apparently streamed the entire fight and posted it on their website using satellites. This person also creates content and writes books specifically about spirits and summoners, which means they must either be a summoner or someone who has information they need. They agree that this mystery person will know more about the Destroyers, but Dora asks how they can find her. Aji then shows them a book signing the girl has planned in the city today. They get excited to go find her, but Greenball wishes them luck because he has to stay with Hana. While Aji and the girls head to the book signing spot, the writer, Stan, hacks into a train and makes it stop where he wants to get off. He then uses the same skill to hack every piece of tech he can find to make his journey easier. After arriving at the book signing spot, he takes over every public screen to draw attention and sets up a table. Just then, Aji and the girls spot him, but Aji suggests sneaking up on her because she might be dangerous. Minutes later, Stan gets frustrated because he hasn't sold a single copy, but then Aji shows up in a disguise and acts like an interested civilian. However, after he pays for a whole collection, Stan asks for what he really wants and calls his name, which surprises Aji. After he also tells Dora and Meowwu to stop hiding, Aji decides to get straight to the point. Dora then grabs her cleavers and demands to know everything there is to know about Stan, but then Aji fractures her skull for asking irrelevant questions. After he asks Stan for his powers, he says he is really good at playing games, but this disappoints Dora, who thinks he is just an overhyped geek. Stan then says he can take over any digital appliance and hack into any software. This makes Aji feel a lot more optimistic about finding him, but just as Stan tries to show off his skills, a powerful blast destroys the stand, and after a quick scan, he takes off running. Aji and the girls follow and say he is important to their mission before Dora asks who they are running from. Stan says he has no idea since he has enemies in every country, but as they expect some mafia squad, 4 mech suits charge towards them with bone-melting firepower. Stan then makes them jump off a bridge into a supercar to escape. As they drive, Aji wonders how the car is moving on its own, so Stan tells him that she is controlling it with some device she's got. They see the machines getting closer, and Stan tells them that they are destroyers. Right after that, the machines start shooting at them. Stan then says that they are like Call of Duty bots that are not worth stressing over. She claims she has cut off their wireless signal, so they will not be able to call for backup, but the machines do not stop firing, and one of their shots even hits a tire, but the car still manages to stay under control after circling. Realizing there is no hero coming to save them, Dora and Meowwu decide to go on the offensive. Meowwu launches a claw wind, but the machine dodges like it has a cheat code. So Dora tries using spirit swords, but the machines dodge every single one of them, and just when things are looking like the game of tag is about to end, the girl zaps one with an electric shock. The crew celebrates their first win, but the other machines are closing in fast. The girls start attacking again, but the machines dodge everything and keep firing at the car. Aji quickly creates a shield around them, but the machines do not back off. They double their ammo, and the shield starts to weaken. When they launch missiles, the girl thinks they have missed, but Aji figures out they are actually targeting the road. The bridge explodes in the blink of an eye, and as they try flying across to the other side, the car dips, but Dora sprouts crystal wings, catching everyone midair. Unfortunately, she runs out of strength, and they all come crashing down. Before they know it, the machines surround them, scanning their faces like they are the latest reality stars. The girl activates her device, and for once, Truck-kun is helping the protagonist, sending a machine to go buy oil. But the machines are persistent, and they return and fire missiles at the truck, blasting everyone away. Stan gets fed up and turns her device into a gamepad, transforming the truck into a battle robot. She then hops onto it like she is ready for a boss fight, and the robot charges, tanking every hit and punching a machine into the ground. She celebrates for a second, but then another machine fires at her robot, so she destroys it like it is just another stagehand. The last machine tries to run, but she smacks its missiles out of the air and catches it, crushing it in one go. The group is impressed, but then she notices a fuel leak in the robot, which eventually explodes and sends her flying. When they spot her again, they realize she is actually a guy. Aji recognizes him as the weird dude he had bumped into while looking for Dora. Dora takes one look at his wig and calls him a weirdo for cross-dressing, but he says that he did it since summoners must keep their identity hidden. But Aji thinks the guy could be useful and invites him to join the crew. Stan is not too thrilled about joining, but he agrees in the end. The next day, in Stan's van, he reveals that this is his secret lab. When Aji asks how they will find the destroyers, Stan reveals that he has been tracking spiritual energy fluctuations. He shows them a map with green dots for unawakened spirits and red dots marking destroyed destroyer activity. They speed up the timeline and see the destroyers wiping out the spirits. Aji figures out that the destroyers are stealing the powers of the summoners, so Stan decides it's time to drop the revelation. He pulls up a scan of Harlan's mansion from the night they were attacked, and Aji spots all the summoned spirits, quickly figuring out that the mansion must have been storing them. He then has his lightbulb moment when he realizes that the destroyers had hit the mansion to swipe all those spirits. Stan isn't done, though. He shows them that all the summoned spirits had awakened on the same day. Aji connects the dots, pointing out that Dora had also been summoned that day. Stan gets all serious and thinks that Dora is a weird spirit and asks her who she really is. But Dora's memory gives her a blue screen, so Stan tells her to zip it for now, saying that they could figure everything out at the mansion site. The van pulls up, and they all stare at the wreckage. Stan quickly flips on recon mode, and a beam of light spreads around, scanning everything. Then he spots the family's camera spirit. He hooks into its memory, hoping to piece together the attack, and after a moment, he projects a hologram, saying that the first destroyer was an Earth summoner who came from a portal, so he wouldn't be caught. As if that isn't enough, Stan is sure that a dimensional summoner had opened the portal for him. For the second attack, he points out that the girl was an elemental summoner, packing fire element guns, and Stan concludes that she was pretty much a walking wrecking ball. Then, he shows Meow's brother, who has everyone wondering if he was brainwashed or something, but Stan tells them that his name in the group is Crow, an animal summoner. Stan suddenly gets curious about what happened after Aji passed out, so he looks to him for answers. Aji says that he ended up in a weird world, so Stan pulls up another hologram and explains that his mind had been hijacked by some guy. He then tells them about the sixth member, a shadowy figure who attacked Hana from the shadows, and because of her element, she was known as Shadow. For the last of the crew, Stan reveals the man who smoked Harlan and had the ability to absorb spirits. They then make their way to the massive hole, and Stan tells them that the real reason they were attacked is buried deep underground. He gets determined and slides down into the hole, with the others following him. As they check out the destruction scene, Aji realizes that the dimensional summoner must have been super powerful to obliterate half the building. Just then, Stan starts scanning again, revealing a huge underground storage. That's when they realize that they were staring at thousands of sealed summoned spirits. Stan explains that Hana's family had been collecting and locking away these spirits as watchers under the mansion. When the hologram unfortunately flickers out, he mentions that Hana's grandfather was the strongest watcher alive before he got smoked. Everyone feels a bit hopeless after that, but then Aji spots something off in the rubble. It isn't just another piece of debris, so Stan scans it and says that it's a chunk from one of the enemies, revealing some special particle on it. Meow sniffs the fragment and immediately recognizes the scent. It's from the equinox flower, a rare bloom that she had encountered before. Stan does some quick detective work, confirming that it grew in the stone forest outside the city. A few hours ago, he had detected a spiritual energy fluctuation there and guesses that one of the 7 destroyers is probably hanging out in that spot right now. Aji then has a lightbulb moment, wondering if this is their shot to take down one of the destroyers. Dora, being the realist of the group, says that they would win but should dip as soon as things go south. Everyone agrees, and Aji says that they head out before sunrise. Later, everyone sits down to enjoy the disgusting poison that Aji cooked. Stan gets curious as always and asks how he learned to cook so well. Aji reveals to them that he's been on his own since he was little, so he had to learn how to fend for himself. Stan then hits him with even more questions, this time asking about his past, and Aji doesn't hold back. At 5, his parents were too busy ignoring him, dragging him from city to city, so he didn't make any friends. Eventually, his dad went to buy milk, and a few months later, his mom followed to look for his dad, leaving him to fend for himself. Dora notices Aji getting all gloomy and tries to cheer him up, but Meow Wu isn't having it, so she asks Dora about her own past. Dora reveals that her memories are pretty fuzzy, but she remembers wandering around the world millions of years ago, with no place to call home. She also adds that every time she tries to remember more, she gets a migraine, so Stan tells her that she is legit and that he has done a full body scan on her. He discovered that her heart is chained up, which made him think her memories weren't lost, but they were just sealed away. Aji wonders how to break the chains, and Stan reveals that not even the gods could break the chains stronger than a Nokia phone. The next morning, they arrive at the stone forest, where Dora is getting freaked out, thinking the place looks like a horror movie, but Aji isn't having any of it. He is determined to face their enemy, so they fly past the stones, spotting the village ahead. They then walk through the creepy, abandoned village, and Stan tells them that the place was wiped out 10 years ago, and anyone who visits mysteriously disappears into the backrooms. A few minutes later, they stumble upon a sea of equinox roses, realizing that they are in the right spot. Just as things are getting too eerie, Meow tackles them to the ground, saying that someone is inside the house. But suddenly, the door opens, and a totally innocent-looking man steps out. He starts working on the soil, and Stan decides to scan his face. Aji senses that Dora might go all rogue, so he stops her, saying that they need to figure out who the man really is. So they watch him for hours like an illegal reality show. Miao gets all observant and notes that there is no spiritual power fluctuation coming from him. But of course, they can't be sure, so they watch as the man heads inside and then comes out with a meal. Miao sniffs the air, telling them that a thunderstorm is on the way. Just as they are about to do something, a rat pops out of the ground, and Dora freaks out, and that is the moment that their cover gets blown. Aji sees that not only has the man noticed them already, but he's waving at them too, so he decides to walk up to him. The man then gives them a warm smile and says that he hasn't had any visitors in years. Aji tries playing it cool, telling him they are just students on a field trip. But when the man starts asking who the others are, Aji notices something strange. He can't see Dora. He slowly starts to realize that the man isn't a summoner. As the man serves tea, Aji throws it away immediately. But the man isn't phased, and he comes back with packed meals, even offering snacks. Aji tries to be polite and stops him, asking if he lives alone. The man with no filter admits that he has been alone for years and was just happy to see another face. As the wind made the flowers sway, Aji asks if he planted them himself. The man tells him yes, and even reveals to him how the field used to be a barren wasteland, but a girl had planted seeds for years, hoping to grow flowers, though nothing ever survived. After she passed away, her determination inspired him to keep planting, and in a few months, the flowers started growing on their own, eventually covering the whole field. Miao then realizes that the storm has arrived, and the wind picks up, hitting the man hard. Aji suggests they head inside, but he quickly notices that the man has fallen into a trance. The wind starts scattering his flowers, and the man gets pissed, trying to save them. He rips off his clothes in frustration, and Stan reveals that the man is one of the destroyers. He tells Aji to eliminate him, like now. But before they can act, lightning strikes the man, throwing them all back with the wind. A thick wall forms around him, and as he struggles, his body begins transforming, completely changing into someone ruthless. As the smoke clears, they realize he's the monster who attacked the mansion. He immediately flies toward Aji, but Aji's holy shield takes the hit, knocking him back. Miao doesn't waste a second. She appears out of nowhere, kicks his face, and jumps away. She also activates her claw wind and scratches his back, but the marks vanish, and she quickly realizes that his skin is tougher than Aji's plot armor. Ruthless immediately charges at her, but before he can get close, Aji and Dora slash him from behind. Their weapons break, and the marks disappear again. Ruthless then blasts them away, figuring out that their weapons are useless. Dora tries to summon a new power for Aji and asks Stan to cover them. Miao, not wanting to miss out, slides under Ruthless and claws at his back, kicking him away. As she keeps attacking, she tells Aji that she knows what she's doing, but Ruthless catches her foot, smacks her into the ground, and kicks her away. Stan rushes to her, realizing she's badly hurt. Meanwhile, Ruthless starts heading for Aji, and with no choice left, Stan steps up to hold him off, saying that he'll buy them a few more minutes. Stan starts reading the big guy's stats, but Ruthless punches him away, trying to bury him in the ground, so Stan disappears, but then appears behind him, still reading. Ruthless tries to destroy him, but Aji realizes that Stan is using a hologram to create shadow clones. Ruthless keeps attacking, but now there are a dozen Stans all around him, telling him that he's going straight to the back rooms. Ruthless is finally fed up, so he unleashes a crazy wind that destroys the ground, blowing all the clones and Stan away. Aji finally manages to catch Stan and casts a shield to protect them from the debris. That's when he notices skeletons buried under the ground, realizing Ruthless must have unalived the whole village. At that moment, Aji decides that the guy deserves to meet the Lord. Ruthless then summons rocks from the earth and launches them, but Aji puts up a shield to protect them. Feeling Dora's energy surrounding him, she tells him she's sharing her memories and the techniques of every weapon she knows. Now Aji is ready, and he charges at Ruthless, using his silver lance to tear off his arm. Ruthless comes back even stronger, but Aji slices him with a sky-rending sword, knocking him back with a reverse blade. At Stan's command, Aji goes for the core, blocking a punch with a blade, then dodges and slices with a dragon-slaying sword. Finally, with Thor's hammer in hand, Aji pounds him into the ground, cracking and shattering his armor at the same time. The battle finally wraps up, and the man, now back to his old self, lies there, looking like a broken mess with the glowing blade sticking out of his chest. The group gathers, and Dora is a bit too enthusiastic about smoking him. That's why they still want to destroy his core, though, just to make sure he's not going to cause any more trouble. Then the man asks them to wait and introduces himself as Mutuo, admitting that he deserves to die, but unaliving him would just make things worse. Dora's not having any of his sob story, and she asks the old man to drop the act, but Mutuo yells that he's not lying and begs them to listen. He explains that he's a monster, but it's not his fault since he's been cursed cursed since birth by parasites that feed on the flesh and brains of their host until they completely take over. His mother lost her life giving birth to him, and his dad couldn't handle it, so he pulled a Sakumo Hatake. Mutuo grew up tormented and bullied because he was labeled a monster, and he couldn't even control his own body from unaliving, disgusting bullies. He ended up banished from the village and was left to die in the mountains, alone. He spent days there, eating dirt and rocks that didn't taste any different from Aji's cooking. Until out of nowhere, a girl found him and wondered what he was doing chained to a rock and eating rocks. He didn't respond, so she shared her rice ball with him. He ate it all and apologized, but she said it's okay since she wasn't hungry, and with that, she started bringing him lunch every day. Her name was Ahawa, and she had this dream of growing flowers out of rocks. She asked him to keep it a secret and not tell anyone at all. She brought him food every other day, and she tried growing plants far out in the desert, but that was as successful as growing seaweed on the moon. She refused to give up, though, so she pulled out a sack and removed the seeds, declaring that one day she'll turn this place into a sea of flowers. Mutuo, feeling like he had something worth protecting for the first time, asked Ahawa for a seed to grow a flower for her. She was stoked, and that was the moment Mutuo realized he had something to live for. But unfortunately, good things don't last. The village started to struggle, and naturally, they blamed Mutuo. Aha tried to defend him, but the villagers revealed that they knew she was the reason Mutuo was still alive. So, the two outcasts took a brutal beating, and just as things couldn't get worse, Aha was struck down by some rotten old hag. Holding the one person he wanted to protect, Mutuo lost it. The parasite and all the rage he had built up took full control. The whole village was wiped out, and Mutuo screamed for Ahawa. Now, he takes full responsibility for her death. He also wants a ticket to the afterlife, but before he does, he needs to keep the spirit sealed. He reveals that what's inside him isn't a core, but a seal. Just then, Stan detects crazy high spiritual power levels, and Mutuo loses control again. Meanwhile, the leader of the destroyers senses the trouble Mutuo is in and calls the crew together. They laugh at whoever is trying to fight him, recalling when they first met Mutuo. It was shortly after Ahawa's death, and the parasite had been temporarily sealed away. They told him that if he ever lost control again, he'd have to help the destroyers with their work of destruction. Stan finally admits that the seal is completely broken, and Mutuo is already dead. Now the huge monster stands there, and the group takes turns attacking. The problem is that none of them are doing any damage, and Miao ends up getting badly hurt. Stan gets knocked back, and Aji tries again with Thor's hammer, but of course, it's destroyed in seconds. Now Aji is stuck, and he has no choice but to pull out the rest of his weapon collection. Even a spear straight through the monster's head does nothing, so Aji turns to Dora, asking her to focus all her energy. He manages to summon a huge sword, but the monster smashes it like it's made of sugar paper. Aji's badly hurt, and Dora's freaking out, begging him to wake up because she can't handle this alone. Suddenly, Aji finds himself in some strange place, surrounded by chains, while Dora does everything she can to keep him safe. The monster keeps attacking, but Dora doesn't back down. Something about the whole situation makes her think of Ahawa. Just as Dora gets attacked, Aji touches a crystal in front of him. In that moment, Dora summons a bunch of swords that rain down on the monster. She's gone through some kind of transformation and summons a massive weapon that pierces the sky. The monster tries to escape but has nowhere to go, getting crushed under the weight of the giant sword. Aji finally wakes up and sees Dora in her transformed state, then back to her normal self by his side. Their friends are okay, and Stan points out that finding the destroyers won't be easy now that Mutuo is dead. Aji says that it doesn't matter because they'll be hunted by the destroyers anyway. They say their goodbyes to Mutuo and head out. Later, the destroyers show up, finding Mutuo's body, so the leader does a spell to read Mutuo's last memories. He watches everything unfold and pulls out a flower, the equinox flower, which blooms once every 1,000 years. He says it grows without leaves, but when it blooms, it has leaves, like their paths, never intersecting, never to meet. He then places the flower on Mutuo's chest and says rest in peace to him, adding that at least now, he'll stop suffering. Later that night, inside Stan's van, Dora realizes that Aji isn't waking up because he's lost too much blood, so she starts trying to heal him. At the same time, Stan notices that Mayo-Wu's running a fever and hopes the destroyers don't find them. But then, the device starts beeping, with massive spiritual energy readings. A portal opens and Shadow appears in front of the van. She casts a shadow blade, slicing the van clean in half. Aji realizes their lives are in serious danger, but just as things couldn't get any worse, Crow shows up from another portal, blasting flames that rip through their bodies and destroy the van, sending them flying. Before they even get a chance to recover, Flame appears behind them, and Stan and Miao-Wu are smoked instantly. Aji crashes to the ground, realizing his friends are gone, and the destroyers appear before him, with their leader Heart calling him a useless disappointment, telling him to save his last words for the devil. Suddenly, space starts cracking open, casting a powerful spell that tears him apart. His soul leaves his his body, and when he wakes up, he finds himself in a strange dimension, with a cloaked man in front of him. The man tells him that he's in the gap between space-time and that he's already dead in the real world. He tells Aji that his friends are gone, and Aji gets angry, blaming himself for being weak and useless. The man calmly states that everyone pays for failure, no matter the price. Then he asks Aji if he thinks he could make things right if given 3 minutes. Aji is shocked when the man reveals he's his father. He encourages him to do his best and says he'll be waiting for him in the demon's furnace when everything ends. Before Aji can process it all, he wakes up back in the van. Dora's trying to heal him, but he tells them the destroyers will be there soon. A few minutes later, Shadow appears again from the portal, casting her shadow blade, but this time, she realizes the van is empty, and turns out it was a trap. The explosion goes off, and Stan tells the others the mission was a success. Dora praises Aji, calling him a genius, but he tells her that their battle's far from over. He suggests they rescue Hana immediately. Stan agrees with him and activates Nitro Boost, speeding up the car. Minutes later, they arrive at his home, but Aji finds out that Hana is missing. Dora wonders if she's already been captured, but Aji finds a letter from Hana and figures she left on her own. As they step outside, Stan tells them the destroyers are just a few kilometers away and calls for Hana's family's helicopter to help them escape. Inside the helicopter, Aji opens the letter and realizes that Hana's headed straight for the demon furnace. Miyawu tells them that it's on a distant island, and Stan explains that it's a holy site for summoner training, where only those who complete the trial become real summoners. Legends say that deep within the demon furnace, there's mysterious, spiritual energy that could let someone see the past and future. But of course, Stan's not sure where the island is, and he figures they're never going to find it. Just then, Aji spots some coordinates on the letter. Stan realizes that it's the exact location of the demon furnace. With no other leads, they head toward the island. A few hours later, they hit the supernatural border, only to be met with a raging storm. Stan says that the island is hidden beyond the storm and warns them that this part of the ocean is called the Sea of Death, where planes vanish. They fly into the storm, wondering if they'll make it out alive, but Dora, on the other hand, seems to think their useless selves are finally done for. Just as things look like it's the end for them, they pass through a light and suddenly find themselves out of the storm, with the island right in front of them. However, Aji senses something off. In the next instant, Shadow appears behind him, aiming to finish him off with her shadow blade. Aji quickly casts his holy shield, but the blade hits the helicopter, blowing it up. As they start falling, Aji dodges another attack, and Stan, being the tech genius he is, uses his gamepad to turn the wreckage into a robot, saving them all. With the battle now on, Aji launches the Mystic Cannon, and the girls follow up with a combined attack, but Shadow vanishes. Miyawu warns them about a new enemy, and that's when Flame pulls up, guns ablazing. The girls try their attack, but Flame dodges and starts firing non-stop, nearly destroying the robot. Then, Crow flies in, and Aji blasts him with the Mystic Cannon. As Crow explodes, he pulls an Itachi move and flaming crows rain down, causing the robot to fall toward the island. When it crashes, the destroyers appear, and they realize they're in deep trouble. But then, out of nowhere, a girl shows up, sticking stickers all over them and saying they violated the island's rules. Her name is Bonnie, and she tells them that this is their final warning. Flame threatens to eliminate her, but Bonnie asks her if she knows where she is, and tells her that she's at the demon furnace, where unaliving is only allowed in the arena. After Bonnie lets them know where they are, she adds that the rules will not change for anybody, even if they were the leader of a country or the richest person in the world. Heart stands there smiling at her as she yells at Flame. Then Bonnie stops yelling at Flame and goes straight to him, telling him that he should know better since he is a veteran who graduated from this place. Shadow gets mad at what she says and threatens to slice her head off, but Heart steps in, saying that he has been through the island trials before, and everyone has to show Bonnie respect. Heart decides that it's time for them to leave, and even though Flame and Shadow aren't happy with that, they disappear in an instant. Bonnie shows her immediate disapproval, and the group can finally breathe, realizing that they barely survived. Dora and Stan dramatically embrace Bonnie, calling her their savior and thanking her. She manages to get them off of her and finally welcomes them to the island, saying that she hopes to see them in the arena. Aji tries to ask her something, but she is gone before he can finish, so they start chasing her. A few hours later, they are all tired out and wondering if they will ever make it to town. Then a guy shows up with some ugly monster lizard and offers them a Jurassic Uber. He says he is a traveling merchant named Richard, and even though the group is freaked out at first, they're also too tired to argue, so Aji accepts. As they ride, Richard wonders why they look like they have been living under a rock, asking if they got shipwrecked or something. Dora says that they are running from destroyers, and they almost died. In fact, so to calm them down, Richard starts telling them that the island is a safe place, and that no one can hurt them there. People who are hunted and people on death row have come here for refuge, so it's 100% safe. He adds that after a long war, the Watchers and Destroyers teamed up for peace, and the ancient summoners built the island far from the rest of the world, so all battles between Watchers and Destroyers are kept in the arena. Dora wonders what would happen if someone breaks the rule, and Richard tells her that no one has ever dared, but if someone does so, they're going to be an enemy of both the summoners and destroyers. Just as they pull up to the town, he leads them into a pub. Richard tells the bartender to bring out the good stuff, so they drink some green liquid that Dora thinks is refreshing, only to realize it is healing their wounds. Richard explains that it is special, medicinal underground spring water. The group asks for more, but Richard figures that they are just clueless rookies, so he hands them more bottles without telling them that they're addictive. When they finish, the owner hits them with a bill for 230,000 furnace dollars. Aji starts stressing about how they're going to pay that off, but Richard swoops in, offering to cover their tab and suggesting they can pay him back later since they're friends now. As they wander through the town, they enjoy the scenery, and Stan takes loads of pictures. Richard says that this place is also known as the Losers' Town because only the losers from the Demon Furnace end up living there. That is when the group realizes that they are all summoners due to how weird they were looking. Stan keeps taking more photos, then they spot a man who sells normal outfits. Realizing that their current clothes are tattered, they stop at the store to buy new outfits. They walk in, finding everything ranging from catgirl costumes to lolly princess gowns, so Stan, the weirdo, could cross-dress more. Dora checks out bikinis, while Aji seems to be the only normal person here. They finally pick good clothes, and Richard goes smooth-talking, paying for them while secretly whispering to the seller to bring out the goods. That night, they make it to the Demon Furnace, which Dora says looks like heaven. They start climbing to the top. At the gate, Bonnie is there to greet all the summoners, and the group knows they are about to get into some serious action. Bonnie tells them the only way to register for the contest is by walking through one of the 4 doors. But as they approach the first door, a robot pops up and demands a $2 million registration fee. Aji starts freaking out, wondering how someone as astronomically broke as him could ever afford that. But Stan steps up, pays his fee, and brags about wiring the money from a couple of Mexican cartels' bank accounts. Before they can process that, some fat dude waddles up, tells them to move aside, and pays in cash. For the second door, only beautiful girls can enter, so Dora turns into her hotter self and walks through, with Aji tagging along. Meow Wu tries to act all cool and confident, but gets shut down by the guard, who tells her that she doesn't have the looks or the figure. He finishes her off by saying she should have some home training and go stand at the back of the line. For the third door, only those with a certain power level can pass. A gross fat sumo guy hits the door to show off his strength, and Meow Wu, showing off her bear level strength, smashes it with ease and heads inside. Not long after, Richard shows up, and Aji wonders how this guy managed to get through the 4th door. Richard tells them that his reputation got him a pass and says the door's for celebrities. When Dora asks what he's famous for, he keeps it quiet, revealing he was actually an infamous criminal and a worldwide wanted loser. Right then, Bonnie appears and starts explaining that they're at the Demon Furnace Arena. It's a 100-floor arena, and the first 20 floors are for beginners. One summoner admits he's only made it past the 5th floor, while another barely made it past the 3rd. Richard then says that this is his 5th attempt, and he's never gotten past the 9th floor, surprising the group. They reach the first checkpoint, and Bonnie announces that there's one every 10 floors, and if they mess up, they have to start all over. After a few minutes, they arrive at a luxury hotel, and Bonnie tells them to rest before the first elimination round. She vanishes just like that, and Meow Wu catches the smell of delicious food from the restaurant, so they rush off to get some grub. Meanwhile, a dark guy from earlier tells his 2 shady-looking friends that only newbies eat that food, not realizing the trials have already started. The guys start chatting about the boss of that floor, who's apparently the world's top-ranked trap master. He's got all kinds of hunting tricks up his sleeve and loves torturing contestants. Richard trembles at the mention of his name, and he remembers when he poisoned the food, causing hundreds of people to quit the competition with vomiting and diarrhea. The other guy remembers when he hid numerous giant leeches in the bath, tossing people around like they're jumping beans. A few hours later, while Aji and the crew are chilling in the bath, Dora walks up to him in her full form and asks him why he's chilling in the bath without taking his clothes off like some weirdo. He says it's because he's still young and he's not used to bathing with catgirl spirits and cross-dressers. This makes them all splash him with water until Bonnie grabs their attention on the television. She brings them highlights from this season's arena, and they spot Hana on television, showing off some crazy moves at the competition. She's already made it to the 11th floor and is killing it, capturing monsters left and right with green balls. The group is pretty impressed, and Aji gets all pumped up, suggesting they give it their best shot and maybe run into her. Later, as they head to their rooms for the night, the men sitting on the couch find it amusing that they're going to their dorms to sleep because only veterans would know to wait in the lobby, and Richard says that the show is about to begin. As Aji and Dora sleep, Aji wakes up to find his room turned into a trap, with spikes shooting out from the walls. The room starts closing in, and he tries to open the door, but it's locked, and Dora finds out that the windows are sealed too. She tries to save the day by summoning her cleavers to break down the door, but they snap into pieces, with her hands already numb when the metal metal doesn't even have a scratch. Aji finally figures out the whole room is a special trap, and Dora tries a bunch of other weapons, but the walls just keep coming closer, and her weapons just keep shattering. Right before they're about to get squashed, Aji has a light bulb moment, and he asks Dora for one summon request, making them manage to escape using a skeleton key. As they rush out, they realize that every room is a trap, so they head straight to Meow Wu's room, where they're met with a huge, disgusting green cockroach crawling out of her room, and Aji tries to smash it. Turns out, it's Meow Wu, and she explains that turning into a creepy crawly was the only way she could escape. The other summoners start popping out of their rooms too, and somehow, even Shredder was invited to this tournament. After they all come out, the group realizes that Stan is the last one left, and then they see red paint leaking from his room. Meow Wu figures he's probably a goner and starts crying, hoping that she doesn't need to pay her last respects, but then Stan falls from the ceiling, claiming that he just escaped through the vents. Seeing this, the crew all jump on him, happy to see him alive. Right then, a creepy dude's voice comes over the speakers, announcing that he's the boss of the first floor. He tells them that, as previously announced, the first knockout round has begun on schedule, and there are absolutely no rules. He adds that they all need to satisfy only one condition to win, and that is to leave the hotel alive. Suddenly, the hallway starts blowing up. Aji and Dora dodge the traps like pros, but Stan nearly gets blown up again. Dora suggests they head for the lobby, and they start running, but the floor explodes, and some useless guy falls straight into the lava. Aji yells at everyone to run, but then the ground starts caving in, and Stan's about to join that guy in the lava. But Dora spreads her wings and pulls off a last-minute save, but the other summoners are clinging to her like that toxic ex you can't get rid of. Aji helps a few more people out, and the round keeps going. Some of the guys start crying like rookies, but a few others dodge traps like they're in a parkour competition. The group runs toward what they hope is the exit, but they're not sure if it's just another trick. Since they've got no better options, Aji kicks the door down, and they're surprised to see that it's the lobby. The boss greets them, calling himself Renault, but the summoners aren't impressed. They try to kick his rice cakes, but Renault's not having it. He unleashes a burst of energy that slaps them with weights, making them as useful as a brick in a swimming pool. A snap of his fingers and a treasure chest appears. He says that it's a reward for surviving the floor. One guy opens his chest to find it packed with gold, and Aji finds a saffron ring. Meow Wu gets a rough diamond worth $1 million, but Richard just gets a pair of old boots that even the homeless wouldn't want. Dora tries to get Stan to open his chest, but he's too busy praying for something special. When he finally opens it, he finds explosives. Renault says that's their real gift for surviving, then activates it. Aji tries to cast his holy shield, but the explosion rips the floor out from under them, and they start falling into the abyss. Down in the abyss, a weird girl pops up and welcomes them to the second floor. They're about to lose their minds until they realize that it's just Bonnie again. She explains that it was all a show, but they're not impressed and start yelling at her. She shrugs it off and tells them that she's the boss here. Then she reveals that the next trial is a race. They find themselves on a giant racetrack, and Bonnie lays out the rules. The first 15 to finish 20 laps move on to the third floor, and it'll be streamed live on television. As they stretch out for the race, Meow was all confident, saying that she'll win, but Dora thinks she's got it in the bag. Then they see the repeat challengers pulling up with actual racing wheels, and suddenly, it doesn't look so easy. Meanwhile, one of the destroyers asks Hart if he's really sure he wants to wake up a dangerous guy, but Hart's all in, saying it's the best gift that he can give Aji. Bonnie fires her gun, and Meow Wu takes off like a rocket, speeding ahead with cheetah-level speed. A squirrel ninja tries to pass her, but she spots him as another animal summoner, just like her. A few moments later, Dora and Aji show up and start flying toward the finish line. A wizard speeds off on a broom, but a poison master nearly beats him, while the other slowpokes struggle to keep up. Then Bonnie notices a famous manga artist who's clearly got nothing better to do and wonders why he's even here. The guy realizes he's been spotted, and two fans try to get his autograph. He ditches them faster than Aji was ditched by his parents and starts sketching some quick lines, zooming past everyone else. One ugly loser tries to call him out for cheating, but Bonnie tells him to shove it. Just then, a rocket zooms past her, and she sees Stan flying ahead at crazy speed. Meow Wu wonders how he pulled that off, and Stan casually admits he stole it from the military. As they hit the final lap, Aji warns the group that the repeat challengers are planning to wipe everyone out so they can be the last ones standing. At that moment, the samurai Champloo-looking guy takes aim and blasts a few racers with his calamity trigger, knocking them out of the race. As he lines up to finish off some ugly loser, Dora flies past him, and he fires off six-shot Slayer. Dora tries dodging, but the bullets curve around like boomerangs, so they decide to just fly straight at the guy, forcing him to take the shots himself. Meanwhile, some Poison Master dude starts releasing poisonous mist, making all the other racers freak out. One of them even falls straight into the abyss. Meow Wu, in snake form, rushes in to stop him, but the Poison Master is unbothered and calls himself the Air. The Squirrel Ninja shows up and whips up a tornado that sucks the Poison Master in like dust, but just when things seem under control, another nutcase pulls out swords, ready to slice everyone up like sushi. Two losers beg for their lives, but the nutjob decides they're better off dead and tries to finish them off. Stan, however, aims his rocket at him, hoping to save the day. The sword-wielding man then slices Stan's rocket apart, sending it crashing to the ground. As he gets ready to chop off Stan's head, the manga artist dude swoops in and blocks the attack, then starts giving a long-winded speech about life and friendship. Surprisingly, his lecture turns into spells, and they start hitting the knight one by one. The manga dude sticks a spell on the knight, and as it zaps him, the artist releases ink and starts writing his own spell with an ink slash move. In a flash, the knight shatters into pieces, and everyone's relieved to see Stan still standing. Bonnie announces that only 15 racers are left, and that they all qualify for the third floor once they cross the finish line, so they take off right away. Back at the Destroyer's base, Flame and Shadow are about to throw down, each eager to prove they are the better fighter. As they charge, Flame blocks Shadow's slash, barely dodging a close call to her head before firing off a few shots. But Shadow vanishes into the ground, her shadow zigzags around, and she pops up to start clashing weapons with Flame. Then Shadow summons her shadow clones, and they charge at Flame, but she takes one out in an instant. Flame summons her gun and starts firing, taking out clones one by one. Shadow then tries sneaking up behind her, but Flame keeps shooting, forcing her to back off. Flame then summons a bunch of guns and starts blasting them all at once, so Shadow forms a shield and blocks all the shots. Space gets tired of the fight and yells at them to stop. As the two stop, Flame wonders why they cannot just storm the demon furnace already. She is itching for some real action and declares she will wipe out all the losers in the furnace to get rid of Aji. Space reveals that she had tried to get inside the furnace right after they left the island, but could not even teleport in before getting chased off by security. Shadow thinks that there is an invisible barrier. Space further says all she got was a useless television set, and with a snap, it pops up from the ground. Turning it on, they see Bonnie on the screen, revealing highlights from the contest. The girls learn that Meow Wu won the race, with Aji coming second. In the cooking contest on the third floor, Aji won with his beef ramen, so good that even the judge could not resist devouring it. Meanwhile, Meow Wu got creative with her fruits, and Stan whipped up a robot ice cream. The karaoke contest for the fourth round featured a metal rock star who almost made everyone pass out from her terrible noise. Flame, done with all the nonsense, shoots the television and begins thinking about how to infiltrate the demon furnace. Just then, Heart arrives, and Dream suggests the girls visit the island for a few days, claiming the air would do them good. Heart agrees and introduces a powerful monster, saying that they will need to take it along as a companion, but the girls are pretty freaked out by it. Heart explains that it is a gift for Aji, revealing that he was planning to unalive him and everyone else. Bonnie summarizes the trials so far. 92 contestants signed up, and only 15 made it to the 5th floor. Thanks to everyone using their powers, Bonnie gathered tons of spiritual energy, which she used to teleport to the demon furnace, 100 floors down. Once there, she walked through a door and saw Pandora, the chained-up goddess who was the source of all the energy. After so long in slumber, Bonnie injected all the spiritual energy she had into Pandora, hoping she would wake up. What comes next for our overpowered protagonist and his crew of misfits? Comment part 2 to find out, and don't forget to leave a like and turn on post notifications if you want to see more videos like this.